It began with a proposal no one outside the palace was ever supposed to hear about, a last-minute request delivered directly to King Charles during a period of growing uncertainty. Courtiers dismissed it as routine business, but when sealed records suddenly surfaced and private meetings were called behind closed doors, it became clear that something far bigger was unfolding. And before the day was over, Charles had made a decision that left Camilla completely blindsided. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Reports suggest the request arrived at a moment when the palace was already moving carefully, with Charles carrying the weight of both personal strain and public duty. To some inside the royal household, Camilla's proposal may have looked simple on paper, perhaps even harmless, a last-minute adjustment wrapped in the language of tradition and convenience. But the timing raised eyebrows. Why now? Why push for approval when every signature from the king carried heavier meaning than usual? According to palace whispers, senior aides were pulled into urgent discussions, not because the proposal itself seemed explosive at first, but because something connected to it had begun to trouble those responsible for protecting the crown's long memory. Then came the sealed records. Documents that had not been part of the first review reportedly surfaced, forcing officials to slow the process and examine what had truly been placed before the monarch. Charles, who had been expected by some to approve the request quickly, suddenly paused. That pause was the first sign that power inside the palace had shifted. The atmosphere reportedly became tense, careful, almost cold. No one wanted to speak too openly, yet everyone understood that a routine matter had turned into a test of judgment, loyalty, and control. Royal correspondents began hearing fragments, not enough to confirm the full picture, but enough to sense that something had gone wrong behind the polished doors of the institution. Camilla's allies may have expected quiet acceptance. Instead, they were met with delay, scrutiny, and finally refusal. And in that refusal, Charles sent a message far beyond one private proposal. The crown would not move blindly, not even for the queen at his side. But the proposal itself was only part of the story the newly discovered documents would reveal. Why the king suddenly changed course. For weeks, many believed the outcome had already been decided. Camilla's proposal appeared routine, practical, and unlikely to face opposition. Yet hidden beneath its polished surface were questions that few people bothered to ask. Questions that would eventually force the entire matter back onto the king's desk. After the first shock of Charles's delay, attention turned to what Camilla had actually requested. Reports suggest it was framed not as a demand, but as a sensible palace adjustment, the kind of administrative proposal that usually passes quietly through private channels without becoming a storm. That was exactly why so many advisors treated it as a formality. It seemed neat. It seemed manageable. It seemed dressed in the language of duty. But inside the royal machine, even the smallest request can carry the weight of history, because nothing connected to titles, access, property, documents, or ceremonial authority is ever truly small. Supporters of the proposal reportedly argued that it would create order, reduce confusion, and give Camilla a clearer place in the unfolding future of the household. Some believed Charles, tired of tension and eager to preserve calm, was leaning toward acceptance. Palace administration, according to whispers, had already begun early preparations, moving as if approval was not a question of if, but when. That confidence only grew among Camilla's allies, who saw the king's silence as quiet permission and the old palace habits as protection. Yet beneath that confidence, a different feeling was spreading among a smaller circle of officials. They were not loud. They did not challenge the proposal openly, but they hesitated. They checked old files. They asked why this request had arrived with such urgency. They wondered whether the proposal touched older promises, earlier records, or boundaries set long before the current crisis. And that hesitation mattered, because inside the monarchy, doubt does not need to roar to become dangerous. It only needs to survive long enough to reach the right desk. What had first looked like an easy signature slowly became something heavier, something tied to memory, precedent, and the invisible rules that guard the crown from private pressure. By the time Charles' advisors looked again, the proposal no longer appeared harmless. It looked like a doorway, and no one could be sure what might enter if it opened. What none of them expected was that a forgotten trail of paperwork was about to resurface at the worst possible moment. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Deep inside royal archives and administrative records, documents emerged that reportedly challenged key assumptions surrounding the proposal. Suddenly, what had seemed like a straightforward approval became a potential constitutional headache. The old confidence around Camilla's request began to crack, not loudly, but with the quiet force of something far more dangerous: paperwork. Reports suggest these records had been overlooked during the first round of discussions, hidden in the kind of palace files that rarely matter until the moment they matter more than anything else. Once senior officials began reviewing them, the mood shifted. The proposal was no longer being judged only by personal preference or household convenience. It was being measured against precedent, authority, and the strict invisible lines that separate royal privilege from royal power. That was where the danger began. Some documents reportedly raised questions about whether the request could create a precedent future advisors might regret. Others appeared to touch on protocol, ceremonial control, or long-standing boundaries that previous reigns had carefully protected. Legal advisors were brought in, not for show, but because one wrong approval could echo beyond the present moment and bind the palace to consequences no one had fully considered. Palace staff, according to insiders, were told to stay silent, and that silence only fed the growing sense that something serious was unfolding. Media figures heard pieces of the story, fragments about internal conflict, urgent reviews, and a king suddenly unwilling to move without complete clarity. Charles, who had already delayed the decision once, now reportedly demanded a full reassessment. It was a striking turn. A proposal that Camilla supporters had treated as nearly settled was now being taken apart line by line, weighed against the old machinery of monarchy. And in that machinery, emotion carries weight, but documents carry force. The king could be sympathetic, he could be loyal, he could understand the pressure surrounding his wife. But once the record itself began speaking, the issue became bigger than personal comfort. It became about the crown's memory, the rules left behind by previous generations, and the question no palace wanted to say aloud: had this proposal crossed a line that should never have been approached? By then, the matter had escaped the hands of those who wanted quick approval. It had entered a colder place, where loyalty is tested by ink, signatures, and precedent. As the review intensified, attention shifted away from the documents themselves and toward the people who stood to gain or lose the most. Caught between loyalty and duty, Charles suddenly found himself confronting a dilemma that reached far beyond one proposal. Every option carried consequences. Every signature or refusal risked creating new tensions within an already fragile royal landscape. Reports suggest the king understood that this was no longer a simple palace request. It had become a test of his reign, his judgment, and his ability to place the institution above every private pressure surrounding him. On one side stood personal loyalty, the quiet pull of marriage, companionship, and the desire to avoid humiliation within his own household. On the other stood something colder and heavier, the crown's responsibility to history, protocol, and the public trust. Senior advisors reportedly offered different views. Some warned that denying the proposal could deepen private tension and invite speculation about Camilla's influence. Others argued that approving it, after the documents had surfaced, could appear reckless, even weak, as if the monarchy had allowed personal relationships to bend rules that were meant to protect the throne itself. That was the danger Charles could not ignore. Public perception has always haunted royal decision-making, but in this moment, it became almost impossible to separate image from duty. Every move would be read as a sign. Approval might be seen as surrender. Rejection might be seen as a break in unity. Silence might be seen as fear. And while comparisons to earlier monarchs reportedly began circulating in private discussions, the message beneath them was clear. A sovereign is remembered not only for what he loves, but for what he refuses. Pressure mounted from different royal circles, each with its own fears and loyalties. Some wanted calm. Some wanted firmness. Some wanted the documents to decide what personal emotion could not. Charles, already carrying the strain of a difficult period, was said to have entered lengthy consultations, searching for a path that would avoid open rupture while still protecting the authority of the crown. But the more he listened, the more cautious he became. The proposal that once seemed ready for approval now sat before him like a locked door with danger on both sides. To sign would be to invite questions. To deny would be to create wounds. Yet monarchy survives by choosing duty when comfort becomes too costly. And as the king hesitated, the palace began to sense that his final decision might not follow the path Camilla supporters had expected. The silence around him no longer felt like delay. It felt like judgment forming in real time. And while Charles deliberated, another group quietly began preparing for the possibility that the proposal would be rejected. By this stage, the issue was no longer simply about documents or protocol. It had evolved into a test of influence inside the monarchy itself. Quiet alliances formed, old rivalries resurfaced, and behind palace walls, everyone seemed to be preparing for a different future. Reports suggest the debate had moved beyond whether Camilla's proposal was useful and into a far more dangerous question: who had the power to shape the crown when uncertainty surrounded the king? Advisors began dividing into careful camps, never openly hostile, but clearly no longer speaking with one voice. Some believed rejecting the proposal would send the wrong signal, making the queen appear weakened at a time when unity mattered. Others felt that approval, after the documents had raised serious concerns, would look like the palace bending its own rules to protect personal influence. That divide made every conversation heavier. Senior figures reportedly expressed private concern that this moment could set the tone for future authority, especially as the monarchy looked toward the next chapter. If one proposal could move quickly because it had powerful backing, what would stop the next one? And if Charles rejected it, would that mark the beginning of a more guarded, less personal style of rule? Supporters and critics quietly rallied around their positions, each side believing the future of palace control was at stake. Meanwhile, speculation outside the royal household grew sharper. Media insiders sensed unusual restrictions in palace communications. Fewer details leaked. Fewer explanations were offered. The silence itself became a signal. Something was being contained, and the harder the palace tried to hold the line, the more the whispers multiplied. Inside, expectations built with almost unbearable force. Every delayed answer gave critics more confidence and supporters more anxiety. The proposal had become a mirror, reflecting fears about loyalty, legacy, succession, and the hidden machinery that keeps royal power moving. Charles, still weighing his decision, must have known that there was no painless choice left. One path would disappoint Camilla's circle. The other would alarm those who believed the monarchy must be protected from even the appearance of private pressure. And that is why this moment felt so significant. It was not a battle fought with public speeches or open confrontation. It was fought through silence, caution, and the quiet gathering of influence. The palace had entered the coldest kind of conflict, where nothing is said plainly, but every delay cuts deeper than an accusation. Then, after days of uncertainty, the answer finally arrived, and it stunned nearly everyone involved. When the moment finally came, there was no dramatic public announcement and no grand ceremony. Just a decision, delivered through official channels, that instantly altered the course of events. After reviewing the evidence placed before him, Charles made his choice. Reports suggest the king rejected Camilla's proposal, not with anger, but with the cold restraint of a monarch who understood that one signature could reshape more than a private request. The newly surfaced documents had become impossible to ignore. They did not merely complicate the matter, they changed its entire meaning. What had once been framed as practical suddenly appeared risky, and what had once looked like a quiet adjustment now carried the weight of precedent, authority, and future consequence. Palace officials were reportedly informed with careful wording, the kind used when every sentence must avoid fire while still delivering a final answer. For Camilla's supporters, the disappointment was immediate. They had believed the proposal was close to approval, perhaps even protected by the king's personal loyalty. Instead, they were forced to face a truth that cut deeper than rejection itself. Charles had chosen institutional caution over household pressure. Critics of the proposal, meanwhile, reportedly felt quietly vindicated. Their concerns had not been dismissed. Their warnings had not been buried. The records had spoken, and the king had listened. But victory inside a palace rarely arrives cleanly. The decision raised new questions almost as quickly as it settled old ones. What did this mean for Camilla's influence going forward? Would future proposals face the same scrutiny? Had Charles signaled a new era in which emotional ties would no longer guarantee administrative approval? Royal correspondents began scrambling for details, trying to understand what exactly had been found, who had advised the king most strongly, and why the palace had moved with such unusual secrecy. Yet the official line remained tight, leaving speculation to fill the silence. And that silence became part of the drama. Because when a royal decision is made quietly, it often means the consequences are too sensitive to explain openly. Shockwaves spread through royal circles, not because the decision was shouted from the steps of power, but because it revealed something more unsettling. Camilla's request could be stopped. Her influence had limits. And Charles, even under strain, could still draw a line when the crown demanded it. The rejection did not end the tension. It only moved it into a more personal, more unpredictable phase. But the rejection created a new problem. How would Camilla respond to a setback few believed she ever expected to face? Those closest to the palace say the aftermath proved almost as significant as the decision itself. Expectations of confrontation never fully materialized, yet the atmosphere surrounding the royal household changed noticeably in the days that followed. Reports suggest Camilla's reaction was controlled, quiet, and carefully managed, but that did not make it any less powerful. In royal life, disappointment is rarely shown through open anger. It appears in pauses, in changed routines, in the sudden cooling of conversations that once seemed effortless. Palace insiders whispered that the decision created a new distance inside the household, not dramatic enough to become official crisis, but clear enough for those watching closely to notice. Camilla had not simply lost a proposal. She had been reminded that even as queen, her influence could be questioned when documents, protocol, and public trust stood on the other side. Public appearances were quickly examined for clues. Every gesture and absence pulled apart by commentators searching for hidden meaning. Was she wounded? Was she angry? Was she preparing to regain ground? The palace offered little, and that silence only made the speculation sharper. Media outlets tried to uncover the exact nature of the documents, the advisors involved, and whether Charles had acted alone or under pressure from senior figures who feared the proposal's long-term impact. But the tighter the palace kept its message, the more the story grew. Charles, meanwhile, appeared focused on stability. Having made the difficult choice, he now had to prevent the rejection from becoming a larger fracture. That meant protecting the dignity of the crown, while also avoiding the appearance of a personal humiliation. It was a delicate balance, and one wrong signal could have reopened the entire matter. Yet the royal household had already begun adapting to the new reality. Advisors became more cautious. Future requests were expected to face closer review. Influence that once moved quietly through familiar corridors now seemed less certain, more watched, more limited. For Camilla's circle, the setback carried a warning. For critics, it offered proof that the old rules still had strength. And for Charles, it became a moment that defined the kind of monarch he was willing to be under pressure. The rejection had ended one battle, but it had also exposed the emotional cost of choosing duty over comfort. What remained was not open war, but something colder. A palace learning to live with a line that had finally been drawn. Yet the true significance of this episode wasn't about one rejected proposal. It was about what the decision revealed regarding the future of the monarchy itself. In the end, the proposal may be remembered less for what it sought to achieve and more for what it exposed. Beneath the headlines, the whispers, and the palace intrigue lay a deeper story about duty, authority, and the fragile balance that holds the monarchy together. Reports suggest Charles's refusal became more than a private decision. It became a warning about how the crown must operate when personal loyalty collides with public responsibility. The documents did not simply block Camilla's request. They reminded everyone inside the institution that monarchy is not built on convenience. It is built on rules, memory, and restraint. Every proposal, no matter how quietly delivered, must survive the weight of history. That was the lesson palace officials could not ignore. From that moment forward, future decisions would likely face sharper questions, closer reviews, and less room for quiet assumptions. The old way of moving through influence and private understanding had been shaken. Transparency, protocol, and authority had suddenly become the words behind every closed-door conversation. For Charles, the choice may have brought short-term discomfort, but it also protected something larger than one household disagreement. It showed that even in a fragile reign, the crown could still resist pressure when the record demanded caution. For Camilla, it marked a painful limit. For advisors, it became a turning point. And for the future monarchy, especially as thoughts quietly turned toward the next generation, it raised a deeper question. Who truly guards the crown when personal wishes threaten institutional strength? The answer was not loud, but it was clear. Power inside the monarchy does not belong only to those closest to the throne. It belongs to the rules that outlast them, the documents that speak when people stay silent, and the duty that survives every private disappointment. And as the palace doors closed once again, one reality remained impossible to ignore. The documents may have ended a proposal, but they also revealed where power truly resides within the crown. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.